Disney Adventure World brings a lot to the table when it comes to how we experience Disneyland Paris. It's much more than a couple of new rides, and one of the major ways that can be felt is how one plans their days in the parks. Before the opening, as night fell, you had two choices: either go to the hotel early or stay in the Disneyland park to watch Disney Dreams, Illuminations, or now Tales of Magic. With Disney Adventure World, a new option is added, and it completely changes the game. Nowadays, both parks have a nighttime spectacular, which is the best way to end your fun-filled day. It also means that if you want to get everything done, one day is simply impossible, and that a second night is needed to catch both shows. I was able to experience Disney Cascade of Lights two different times in slightly different places, and I have a lot to say about the show. Some things amazing and others not so much. Either way, I want to begin by saying that the teams have done an amazing job bringing Adventure Bay to life at night. This was a huge project as it needed to be built from the ground up, with loads of show infrastructure done from scratch, tech installations, and so much more to be able to play every single night in the park. What everyone thinks, it doesn't take away the man hours, the nights, and people needed for something like this. So here's a huge thanks to everyone that worked in bringing this thing to life. First of all, let's talk about the project itself, what Disney Cascade of Lights really is. The show producers were presented with a new challenge in Disneyland Paris. For the past decades, a night show meant Disneyland Park and the castle, with some small exceptions for temporary ones, such as Power the Night. But the principle was the same: a large surface for projection mapping and pyro effects spread across different levels, mostly behind the projections. Of course, there are many other aspects like fountains, lights, lasers, and more, but in Disney Adventure World, the idea was completely different, because there is no main icon that gets the projections. Instead, a 360-degree viewing area around a large body of water. It's not the first time Disney produced a lake show like this. Epcot has had several through the many years, some more successful than others. So with the lake being the center stage, show infrastructure needed to be added, and there are two possible routes: either permanent barges in the water, or some that get assembled and disassembled before and after the show. Thankfully, they went with the second option, which means more daily work to get it running, but also much more pleasant views during the day. Epcot learned this the hard way some years ago. The barges come out from backstage and are assembled like a huge Lego set in the darkness, with the help of boats and several hands. These have most of the show technology, from fountains, projectors, speakers, pyro, and even the drones. It's the beating heart of Cascade of Lights. Now, I'm quite particular about nighttime shows. For me, they have to hit several aspects for me to consider them successful. So for the sake of this video, I thought of 4 different aspects that make or break one: technology, story, emotion, and music. If a show can get these 4 aspects right, then it's most definitely a winner. Of course, we need to consider several things. You can really compare a show like Disney Illuminations, and I'm talking about the Epcot one here, to Disney Cascade of Lights in terms of tech, without also thinking about when each of them were developed, since they're literally decades away. Either way, most of the problems I have with Cascade of Lights aren't really exclusive to the show in particular, but rather something that can be found in many of the Disney nighttime spectaculars in the last few years. But we'll get to that in a minute. Let's break it down then. Starting with technology, this is where the show absolutely shines. Creating all the infrastructure needed for such a project is probably the hardest and most expensive part of the list. Those barges hold so much, and it all works very well. The drones are truly incredible. These are our new generation and can do a lot more than the old ones, including passing through the fountains and get much closer to guests. It's amazing to see them all working together, and especially so close to you. All around the lake, there are countless searchlights that dance in unison with the show too. These are hidden or in specially designed structures. One thing that caught me off guard and I'm not 100% sure happens everywhere, is that the speakers around the lake don't emit any sound during the show. The soundtrack comes exclusively from huge speakers in the middle of the lake. This was slightly disappointing, as using the speakers close to the guests could create a very interesting 3D effect, similarly to what Tales of Magic does. Speaking of sound, let's talk about the music. In my opinion, this was both a strong and weaker point. The music and soundtrack of the show is very catchy, and again, something that I really enjoyed. Both the intro and outro versions of We Can Be Heroes are great, and just writing this immediately popped into my head. I also love the after show, slower version that plays as you make your way around the lake and down Adventure Way. However, most of the recreated film soundtracks for each IP segment weren't as good as I would hope. Tales of Magic hits the right spot, bringing both French and English into each song. Here I felt like the split was uneven. Music is obviously directly tied to the emotion part of the show too, and so let's move to this aspect. The way I would describe Cascade of Lights is a fast-paced celebration of different heroes that fall under Disney's IP umbrella. I won't get into the story just yet, but for the emotion side, the fast-paced is the important part. You move from one IP to the other quite quickly, and while there's a lot of fun parts, even what I guess could be a party with Zootopia, the show completely misses on slower, more emotional segments that let you breathe and maybe even get teary-eyed. On the show next door, Beauty and the Beast and even Lion King are two amazingly done sequences that give you exactly this. So yeah, I really think that the show lacks some depth here, but it's nothing compared to what the story gives us, or doesn't. Here is where I'm most critical of the show. It gives you an idea that we can all be heroes, and then it displays different scenes with Disney characters, but in a way that feels like a PowerPoint presentation of Disney properties. First of all, the start of the show is incredibly solid, with great music and action, but we fall back to narration in order to bring the story to life instead of showing us. This is the laziest way to do it and not as effective. Disney Dreams offers the perfect counterpoint. It begins with a great music and slowly moves the story forward with Peter Pan and Wendy. The story doesn't really start until Peter's shadow escapes him and goes against the second star to the right, resulting in all the magic spilling away. Then we follow Peter's shadow through different Disney movies: Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Lion King, Tangled, and others, but always following the protagonist of the story, because this is a narrative. We eventually take a wrong turn and find some Disney villains too. In the end, all is saved and we have a big finale. I find Disney Dreams so perfect because of its story. It's one that's also very similar to another beloved and several decade-old show, Fantasmic. It just works. Meanwhile, Cascade of Lights is not a narrative, and it doesn't really feel like a story. It's a display, and there's nothing wrong with that either, but it just doesn't work as well as Fantasmic or Disney Dreams. Now let's talk about the IPs chosen for the show, because now that we don't have a story, we need strong sequences to really make it work. Unfortunately for me, it missed quite a bit here too. One thing I don't understand is how Tales of Magic and Cascade of Lights were produced at around the same time, because there are scenes that are basically the same in both, or others that should be in the other. For example, the first IP we come across is Mulan, with the same music and scene as in Tales of Magic. Don't get me wrong, Reflection is a great and inspiring song, but do we really need two of them? Then there's what I would say is the best sequence in Tales of Magic, The Lion King. Are these shows supposed to last for more than 5 years? If so, how does that IP stay in Disneyland Park when there's a huge attraction and area dedicated to this property coming to Adventure World? It just doesn't make sense to me. Avengers is another. Now, I understand why Cascade of Lights includes it, and it's a stunning sequence to look at, but I can't help but feel that the IP is shoehorned into the show just because of how big it is. It doesn't feel Disney, and it shouldn't be in a show with Disney animated characters. Also, how can you use the Portal soundtrack from Endgame and not have different drone portals appear in the sky? It just feels like a missed opportunity, really. I do have one more major story problem with the show, and that's the lack of overcoming the dark side. Both Dreams and even more Phantasmic have these great sequences with the good guys fighting the villains, but they are mostly forgotten in newer shows. Tales of Magic is the same. When the show is all about heroes, I feel like it really needed some villains to balance things out. Now, the good news is that the hardest and most expensive part of the development of the show like this is done. The infrastructure is built and tested, and in my opinion, if in the future a second version of Cascade of Lights is created, some scenes should be changed with stronger IPs, such as Mulan, and a full sequence dedicated to villains should take over the Avengers part. This will make it so that once the heroes overcome the villains, the finale comes around. As I said, most of these issues can be found in nearly all new shows. It's not exclusive, which is why perhaps the best course of action would have been bringing something like Phantasmic to life in a brand new way. Take what works best, upgrade it to the infrastructure here, and amaze guests. Honestly, just thinking of the possibilities with the drone technology, the projections, fountains, and all the rest is so much fun. Either way, I feel like Cascade of Lights has a lot going for it, and is a very solid starting point for years of nighttime spectaculars in the park. Disney Dreams didn't come around until 20 years after the first fireworks show was displayed in Disneyland Park. I once more want to thank all the teams and people that brought this show to life with what I can only imagine were many sleepless nights. If you want to get a small taste of the work that it took, I recommend watching the Disney Unscripted video. It really gives us an amazing idea of the behind the scenes. And now, I ask you, have you watched Cascade of Lights, and if so, what do you think? And now, as always, thank you for watching, and that's a wrap.